Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the best Bartók piano concerto cycles. And I have to say, this was a fun talk to do because there are a limited number of Bartók piano concerto cycles, and most of them are terrific. They really are. I mean, this is the perfect case where you're just as well off getting all three of them because they all fit on a single disc quite beautifully. And once you have them, I mean, the standard of performance is so high among the people who've done complete cycles. You may prefer one pianist over another or have some very specific things that you listen for in individual works, and that, of course, is up to you. But in terms of overall quality, it's terrific. It's just terrific. I mean, I have a favorite. I'll tell you what mine is, but we're going to go through them and get whatever you can get. I mean, fortunately, some of them are in boxes. Some of them are no longer available, but a lot of them are. And if they, or they're not hard to find. And they're such wonderful works. I mean, they really are. They're just amazing works. They really encapsulate the best, absolutely the best of Bartók, I think. I mean, there's really no well, there is. There's one absolutely awful Bartók piano concerto cycle, but you're not going to find it anyway. It's the one with what's the guy's name? I don't know, Ernest Hall or something like that, on Black Box, conducted by David Creed with the Sinfonia of Leeds. I mean, who in their right mind would pick that thing anyway? Unless you're maybe, Mrs. Hall or his relatives or something. I don't know. You don't even have to think about it. But all the others that we're talking about, all of the others are really, really first class. And I'm not kidding. I mean, I went through these things. I really did, and listened to them. And yeah, there were some things I liked better than others in some performances. But, let's just talk about the works a little bit, and then we'll go to the recordings. The three concerti are quite different from each other. The wonderful thing is that they really do show Bartók's full range as a composer. The first concerto is somewhat experimental. It's the one that has the separate percussion section next to the piano right up front, given soloistic prominence, and it supposedly explores all of those wonderfully percussive sonorities that Bartók was experimenting with and playing around with at that period. Oh gosh, it's marvelous. Now, it's kind of the most sort of poundy and thumpy of the three concertos. And for that reason, critics who are trying to sound smart like to talk about how performances stress the music's lyricism and its folk-like underpinnings, and it's all such crap and nonsense. I mean, yeah, sure, some pianists will do that, and that's lovely if that's what they want to do. But the fact of the matter is, Bartók spent a lot of time figuring out how to make the piano be a percussion instrument and to play with the percussion. So you can also pound the living daylights out of the thing, and it's just terrific. So if that's what you want to do, I say go for it. Reduce your piano to kindling. Who cares if you're trying to stress the music's innate underlying lyricism? I mean, it's like, oh, God. Critics are so stupid. And, including me. We say things sometimes because, we need to sound smart. And we want to sound insightful. And so we make these very, very sage observations. But it's also obvious and so simple. There's really nothing complicated about it at all. When Bartók has his percussion section going like mad, the piano going bang, 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 he wants to be percussive. It's great. People also point out that Bartók himself tended to be quite a romantic pianist. He was tremendously into rubato, in spite of the fact that he wrote metronome markings and timings for each section of the music. He was incredibly controlling and precise in the way he notated things, and he was. But then he went off and did whatever he wanted, and good for him. And so can you. So I'm not worried about that stuff. I'm not. But the first concerto is the most sort of modern sounding of the three. It's the one with the most sort of imaginative timbral effects in some respects, at least as regards piano and percussive sonorities. And I don't think anyone's ever done it badly. I mean, people who play it know how to play it. It's one of those pieces where you either don't do it or you do it well. And that's all there is to it. Now, the second concerto is one of Bartók's super cosmic masterpieces. First of all, formally, it's in a 5-section arch form. You have the fast outer sections, and then you have the slow second movement that encases a scherzo. And there are so many things that that catch the ear in this piece. There's the opening movement for piano and winds entirely with no strings, and then you have that nocturnal string section in the second movement, strings played without vibrato, and he tells them to play without vibrato, which means that they were playing with vibrato. But he didn't tell them. That wonderful contrast, and then there's the scherzo bit in the middle, and then of course there's the finale, which is a rondo, which has episodes based on the previous material from the previous movements, which is, formally very clever. Although I always have felt about the second concerto, and this is really funny, the form of the rondo is exactly the same as the form of the rondo in Gershwin's piano concerto, which came first, I might add. And, the irony of it is that people always talk about how ramshackle Gershwin's approach to form is and how brilliant Bartók's is. But no, I don't think so. I really don't think so. There are a couple of very similar rondos right there and a very similar approach to form, actually throughout the whole concertos. It's a wonderful comparison, I think. Someday, maybe I'll do a talk on the concerto in F versus Bartók's second, so we can talk about formal issues. It'll be not to Gershwin's disadvantage, I assure you. But anyway, the second concerto is sort of the one that everybody pulls out, even pianists who don't usually do Bartók. And there are wonderful individual performances of it, but we're not going to talk about those now because there's no need to. You're going to get a very good performance of the second. The third concerto, of course, was written for Bartók's wife. It represents, like the concerto for orchestra, a return to more of his nationalist folk-like roots. It's his most lyrical concerto, even spiritual. In that central movement, it's marked, I think, Andante Religioso or Adagio Religioso or something Religioso. Yeah, Adagio Religioso. Look at that. When did Bartók ever call anything religioso? It's a really serene, lovely, lovely work. Absolutely marvelous. And lots of people play it, and almost no one plays it badly. It's sort of impossible. All of this music, for some reason, it's almost performer-proof in a way. It really is. I mean, it's easy to do well if you take the time to learn it and give it some semblance of achieving what the composer put down on the page. So you're in great shape getting all three concerti because they give you the essence of the composer, and what an essence it was. And most of the pianists who've done them all have done them all well. That's the way it goes. So I'm going to go through. I've got 11 Bartók piano concerto cycles here, and I keep all of them. I like them all for various reasons at various times, and it's that simple. One of them that I don't have here, it's sitting over in the overflow room, so I have to tell you about it instead of showing you something, is Andras Schiff with, Ivan Fischer. And it's absolutely first rate. For those of you who think that Andras Schiff is a reticent pianist of all soft edges and kind of modesty, these are very, very good, idiomatic, exciting performances. He may surprise you. So by all means, if you have Andras Schiff on Teldec, which is now Warner, which is, I don't know what it is now, go for it. You're fine. And now let's talk about the ones I have sitting here. Oh my goodness, look at this. Okay, Peter Donahoe and Simon Rattle. Now, this is really good. I mean, it's really good, particularly in the first and third concertos. The second isn't recorded quite as well as the other two. I think it was done in a different location, but these are just fine. I mean, what am I supposed to say? No, really, they're very, very good. Dynamic, exciting. Rattle is a perfectly fine accompanist. The orchestra sounds well. The sonics are good. It's not my first choice. Not my first choice for a variety of reasons, but there's no downplaying its quality. My God, they know what they're doing. The next one, let's see here. Oh yeah, György Sándor. Sándor, I don't know how to pronounce these things in Hungarian. But György Sándor, let's just call him, of course, was the pianist who gave the premiere of the Third Piano Concerto. And he waited until quite a bit later in his life to record all of them. And let me see. Let's just pull out this recording of the three so you can take a look at it. This is the Hungarian State Orchestra with Adam Fischer, the other Fischer. It's amazing. You have to have a Fischer. You can't do the piano concertos without a Fischer, can you? And, you know, Sándor was, a pianist who, I mean, his Bartók is stupendous, but you know, he was one of the ones who went more for the lyrical aspects of Bartók's piano writing, and, claiming that this is what Bartók himself did. And it may be that when this recording was made, he was a little bit past his prime, but, why complain? Seriously. I mean, it's very good. It's on Sony. It's absolutely fine. The only catch is you may only be able to get it in this Sándor box, this big box of Sándor, which has 17 CDs. It's actually very good. I mean, it's a fun box to have. I enjoy it, but you may not want to get 17 CDs of Sándor, and it's hard to find separately. Next, I like this one. This one came as a sort of a surprise, but shouldn't have been a surprise. You know what I mean? Jandó on Naxos. This is with the Budapest Symphony Orchestra, András Ligeti. And, Jandó is one of those pianists who everybody sort of poo-pooed. A, because he was on Naxos, which was a budget label, and B, because he recorded everything in the universe while he was on Naxos. But like so many, instances in the classical music world, it's so easy. It's just so easy to poo-poo something when you haven't bothered to listen to it. And, Jandó is a very, very good pianist. Yes, maybe he recorded too much too quickly, at least for us to absorb, not necessarily for him to play. But, it all came out. It was all there. It was all budgeted. It's all in these little white things that don't look so attractive compared to deluxe other, prime labels. But, Naxos is a prime label and a major label. And when you go back and you listen to these performances by Jandó, you realize he was really a very, very fine musician. And, he's Hungarian, and it's all Hungarian, and the Hungarians do the Hungarians well. I mean, they really do. And these are fine, fine performances. The sonics aren't as great as some of the other ones that we're going to talk about, but God knows they sound well enough. And the performances are first class. Absolutely first class. Give Jandó a chance. It's available. It's easy to find. It's really a nice thing these days, especially. This is a classic set that was talked about as the best sort of non-Hungarian production. This was Stephen Kovacevic with Colin Davis, except his name was Bishop back in those days. And then it became Bishop Kovacevic, and then it just became Kovacevic. And I don't know what's going on with that. But they were very, very good performances. Always very highly regarded. Remember, his Beethoven Cycle 2 with Colin Davis was pretty highly regarded, and he made some beautiful recordings for Philips. And these performances of the concertos were really the ones to get because they were readily available as a set, all three of them. And, some of these other ones are either more recent or, some of them were much harder to find. And it's really kind of interesting because when these came out, there wasn't so much competition. And so it was really smart of him to do this. But it's a first-class cycle. It really is. It's excellent. Absolutely excellent. And you may recall he did the first Martha Argerich Sonata for two pianos and percussion as well, which was also on Philips, which is now Decca. So, Kovacevic is a very, very good choice. Still, they've held up well. More recently, quite recently, in fact, is Jean-Eflam Bavouzet on Chandos. Bavouzet is wonderful. I mean, he's a wonderful pianist, absolutely first class. And, of course, the orchestra is the unfortunately dull BBC Philharmonic under Gianandrea Noceda. But I have to say, again, first of all, they're accompanying, so it's not a big deal. And second of all, they play quite well. They really do. They play very well. It's just a very, very honestly good, Bartók piano concerto cycle. And Babuzet is marvelous. He's absolutely marvelous. It's nice to hear him not do French music, although his Haydn piano sonatas have been fabulous too, and he did some very good Beethoven. I mean, he's a really a wonderful, wonderful pianist. And so this was very, very good to hear. Nice to see this show up, and I enjoyed it very much. I reviewed it on Classics Today. I think I gave it like a 9 out of 10. Deservedly so. It's perfectly fine. Now, this, if I ever did an ideal Bartók piano concerto cycle, which I won't do because there are only 3 piano concertos, I mean, you could add more things. You could do the concerto version of the sonata for 2 pianos and percussion, which is just awful. Or there's that sort of scherzo for piano and orchestra, and the other thing for piano. You can make 5 or 6 works out of it, and then do maybe an ideal talk. Who knows? Maybe I'll do it sometime. But there isn't enough. There isn't enough. Meat in the other works. To make it really justify it. But Pierre Boulez, now his Bartók piano concerto cycle has 3 different pianists, 1 for each concerto. And it works surprisingly well. You've got, Christian Zimmermann in the Chicago Symphony in the first, Life of Ansnes in the Berlin Philharmonic in the second, and Hélène Grimaud with the London Symphony Orchestra in the third. And it works beautifully. They are absolutely excellent performances of each concerto. And the sonics are amazingly uniform, considering that they're all coming from different places. I was very surprised. I really expected it to be sort of, gimmicky and kind of a mess when it came out, but it isn't. It's absolutely first class. And if you don't want to, hitch your post to one pianist only, and you want a selection of 3 absolutely great modern living pianists, go for Boulez. Again, the only issue is that now it's in this box, his Bartók box. I don't know how easily available it is separately, but it's first rate. Also, another sort of take it for granted nobody pays attention to, but they should cycle, was Ashkenazy and Schulte, which is also now stuck in Schulte's Bartók box, which is kind of disappointing because the Schulte's later Bartók with Chicago wasn't as good as his earlier Bartók with the LSO, and the LSO Bartók's not in here, which is a crime. I mean, if you're going to do a box with Schulte doing Bartók, put it all in there. Of course, that would make the Chicago stuff sound inferior, and maybe somebody didn't want that. I don't know. But Ashkenazy's Bartók Concerti, he's another one. He was the Yano Yando of Decca, another pianist who recorded so much, arguably too much, whether as a conductor and as a pianist. There was a period where he just seemed to be everywhere, doing everything. And, the tendency is to just say, gosh, here he is again, and not pay attention. But you have to pay attention, right? There is no excuse for not listening to what these guys are really doing and then judging every performance on its own merits. Ashkenazy is a stupendous pianist. He always was, and his Bartók is excellent. Schulte is an excellent Bartók conductor when, he wasn't doing his late digital stuff at Chicago. I mean, some of it was very good, but, it's so hard when you're competing with yourself, right? Anyway, this is a very, very fine Bartók piano concerto cycle. Absolutely first class, like all of these are. I mean, what are you going to do about it? But if you have it, it's wonderful. If you don't want to get it, you don't have to because it's stuck in a box. But don't be afraid of it. It's absolutely worth your time. It certainly is. It's beautiful. Now we're coming to my top 3. Finally, the top 3. Oh, yes. I love these performances. This is Yefim Bronfman with Esa-Pekka Salonen and the LA Phil on Sony. This is absolutely, I keep saying absolutely. I got to get rid of that. This is excellent. Let's just leave it at that. Excellent in the modern, spikier approach. Bronfman is not the guy who's going to do let's seek out the Hungarian folk roots of each piece. And Salonen is an avowed modernist. And so if you like that approach to the music, and it's a wonderfully legitimate approach to the music, there's no reason not to go for it. This is exceptional. This is probably my favorite version by people who aren't Hungarian. Because, you know, I mean, it's just a fact. The Hungarians have a special affinity for this music. They really do. But if you're looking for a non-Hungarian version, one that you might say internationalizes it, which is a sort of a facile observation, it's going to be hard to do better than this, because Bronfman is just superb. You know, he did this around the same time as he also did his Prokofiev cycle with Zubin Mehta, which is also absolutely, here's that word again, which is stupendous. Let's just call it that, stupendous. And so are these Bartók concerti. Now, top two, you knew this one was coming. This is my second favorite version. Geza Anda with Ferenc Fricsay on Deutsche Grammophon. Oh, wow. These have been, I'm not saying it. These have been famous since the day they came out. I mean, really, reference recordings. They still are. Fortunately, they were recorded in stereo, in very good stereo. They sound splendid. Fricsay was one of the great conductors of the 20th century. Geza Anda never made a better recording than these three concerti. You have to have this. You really have to have this. This is also historically an extremely important set. And I mean, I don't believe in buying things that are historical but not musically rewarding. But when they are historical and universally rewarding, then you get a wonderful package. And this is the complete package. So, yeah, you got to get this. You have to have it. It's an absolutely essential purchase. And let's see, my little plastic jewel case here simply self-destructed. Don't you hate these plastic things? Oh, God, these are so annoying. You know, here, see the cover? It has those, you know, the little tag thing fell off or broke off or whatever. So now I have to figure out how to put this thing back together. Okay, I put it back together. Then you have to either, you know, buy separate jewel boxes or throw away some piece of crap disc you're going to get rid of anyway. And you just take the cover, the booklet cover part off and attach it. I know, all of you guys who are collectors like I am, you are all experts at how to fix jewel boxes. And of course, they come in the mail now. They get all crushed and cracked and splintered, and it's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Okay. However, we have to get to the end. And here we are, my favorite versions. And those of you who know these works also know this one's coming. Zoltán Kocis with the Budapest Festival Orchestra and Ivan Fischer. Fischer again. You know, if you don't have a Fischer in your Bartók, you're not getting the authentic Bartók. Oh no, Kocis is so great. He did all of the Bartók piano music on Philips. It has since become really hard to source, which pisses me off like you can't imagine. Hey, folks at Universal, we really need a Kocis box. Desperately. His legacy for Philips has been treated like dog food. I mean, terribly, terribly. He did fabulous Rachmaninoff. He did some Chopin, some Wagner transcriptions by Liszt. Maybe it wasn't Chopin, it was Liszt. I don't know. I don't remember. Even I have it sitting in the overflow room. His Debussy was gorgeous. His Rachmaninoff piano concerti are reference versions. And the Bartók is sui generis, the greatest Bartók set that's ever come out by anybody ever. And his piano concerti, for me anyway, combine the lyricism. There you go. There's the lyricism. You can't talk about Bartók without talking about lyricism, whether he wanted to be lyrical or not. And percussiveness and energy and intelligence and musicality. I mean, Kocis was such a great musician, just an all-around great musician. As a conductor, he was a great musician. And his Bartók was always fabulous. And this is just such an important set, probably the best modern version of these concertos that has yet been recorded, in my view. So if you can find it, do find it. If you can, if you don't have it, well, and can't get it, just look for it. It'll come back. All of this stuff is coming back. And if Universal doesn't do a Colchis box, then we should camp out on their doorstep until they do it, because it's really important. He was a major, major artist and such an intelligent musician. So for my own personal taste, I go with Colchis when I want to haul out the 3 Bartók concerti. But all of the ones that I've talked about here, you get all 3 concerti, and they're all really, really good. I mean, if I'm rating them on Classics Today, they're all, 8, 9, 10. And what does that mean? When you're in the upper echelon there, all it means is that it's a question of personal taste. And that's all it is. It's what it boils down to, doesn't it, folks? It's your own personal taste, and you may have, your choices. I have mine, but you do know, and you can't argue with the fact that these concerto cycles, these Bartók concerto cycles are all first class. They're really first class. And so with that, I urge you to keep on listening to your Bartók piano concertos. Pick a cycle, any cycle. Take the one on the bottom. You're going to do fine. You're really going to do fine. But do listen to these works. Listen to them. They work well listening to them one after the other, because they're so different from each other, and because each has its own special qualities. I just love them. I love listening to them, and I love, if you find Bartók to be somewhat sort of cold and off-putting, or sometimes too dissonant, or I don't know. These are the pieces you should hear. They contain the best of him. They truly, truly do. So thank you, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.